Okay, so let's get right to it. You're looking at a brand new market, and you've got that classic question nagging you. Is this a genuine golden opportunity, or is it just a really, really expensive trap waiting to happen? If that sounds familiar, you're in the right place. We're going to break down a system for making that exact decision. Well, it usually starts with what I like to call the GDP fantasy. And honestly, this is probably the number one most expensive mistake companies make when they go international. You see this huge population, a GDP that's just skyrocketing, and you get totally starstruck. But that's exactly how you end up in operational quickstand. You gotta remember this one thing. An attractive market is not, and I mean not, the same as a winnable one. And this right here, this is the core confusion. It's so simple, but so deadly. On one side, you've got your attractive market, all the big, shiny numbers that look fantastic in a PowerPoint deck. But on the other side, you have the winnable market, which is all about the messy, complicated reality on the ground. When you mix these two up, you're basically setting yourself up for failure. It's a surefire way to burn through cash, tarnish your brand, and just watch a brilliant strategy completely fall apart. So right, how do we dodge that bullet? We need a smarter system. And that's what we're talking about today, the Emerge framework. Just think of it like a really disciplined way to look before you leap. It forces you to ask all the hard, uncomfortable questions right at the beginning, not after you've already spent millions. You know, the real genius of this whole framework is how it splits two totally different questions apart. The first question is, can we make money? That's your opportunity. But the second, and arguably more important question is, can we even survive? And that's all about viability. Most epic failures happen because companies get completely obsessed with the first question and totally, completely ignore the second one. So, how's it work? Well, Emerge is built on these 6 core pillars. They're like a reality checklist, you know? And they're grouped into 2 buckets, which gives us 2 super important scores, an opportunity score and, you guessed it, a viability score. Okay, let's just quickly run through these pillars. First up, E for earnings pool. And this isn't about GDP, no, it's about who is actually going to pay for your thing. Then, M for moat fit. Do you have a real advantage that some local competitor can't just copy in 5 minutes? R is for route to market. Super practical. Can you actually get your product to the customer and, get paid? Then we switch to viability. The second E is enabling environment. This is all about the gap between the law on paper and how things really work. G is for ground game. This is where so many strategies die. Can your ops team actually handle the local reality? And finally, the last E, evolution and exit. You gotta have a plan to scale up, sure, but you absolutely need a plan to get out if it all goes south. All right, so we've got these pillars, which is great. But how do you turn all that analysis into a real go or no-go decision? This is where the framework stops being just a list of ideas and becomes a seriously powerful tool. We're talking about a scorecard here, not just going on vibes. And here it is, the aha moment of the whole system. It's called the confidence factor. See, you don't just score each pillar, you also have to rate how confident you are in your data. If it's verified, rock-solid data, it gets full points. But if it's just an educated guess, bam, the score gets slashed by more than half. This is so smart because it forces you to be honest. It punishes uncertainty right away and stops the team from treating gut feelings like they're hard facts. And all that work gets you here, to the big payoff. A super simple 2x2 decision map. You plot your opportunity score on one axis and your viability score on the other. High on both? That's your green light. You invest. Low on both? Easy. It's a clear no-go. But the most fascinating quadrant is the bottom right. High opportunity, but low viability. This is what we call optionality mode. And it doesn't mean you stop. It means instead of going all in, you make small, smart bets to learn fast and see if you can push that viability score up. Okay, but does this actually work in the real world? Theory is one thing, right? So let's look at a case study. We're going to see how one company used a 90-day test to prove the model before they committed a ton of money. So meet ThermoTrack. They're a tech company selling these really important IoT sensors that monitor the cold chain for pharmaceuticals. Super critical stuff. They saw this huge opportunity over in Indonesia and wanted to jump in using a local partner. It's a pretty classic expansion play. So at what they call Gate Zero, the very beginning, they ran the numbers through the framework. And look at this. It's the classic dilemma. Their opportunity score? A pretty solid 75.8. The market is definitely attractive.
But look at that viability score. It's a shaky 53.6, with a huge chunk of uncertainty. The data is basically screaming at them, warning major execution risks ahead. And because of those scores, the decision was not go. The leadership team put them squarely in optionality mode. The message was crystal clear. You are not getting a big budget to launch this thing. You're getting a small, time-boxed budget for a 90-day pilot. Go prove you can actually do it on the ground.
And this is the cool part. This is how they did it. The team took their biggest assumptions, the areas where their confidence was lowest, and turned them into actual measurable experiments. Vague questions like, will distributors even pay our price, became a specific test. Secure 2 signed letters of intent. Or can we get our stuff to customs without, facilitation, became a test to document an official fees-only import process. This is the system in action, turning fantasy into facts.
So, just to refresh our memory, this is where they started. A really promising opportunity, yeah, but it was being dragged down by some very real doubts about whether they could pull it off. Now, let's see what happened after those 90 days of testing. Whoa, check out that change. After the pilot, they ran the scores again. The opportunity score actually went up because now they had real, hard evidence of demand. The viability score jumped over that crucial threshold to 65.6 because they proved their operational model actually worked. But honestly, the most important number on this slide is the last one. Yup, 0. The pilot completely wiped out all the key uncertainties. What were once just educated guesses about pricing, compliance, and local partners were now solid, evidence-backed facts.
So, with the uncertainty gone and viability proven, the company could confidently switch its posture to invest. The board gave the green light to scale up, but, and this is super important, notice that last phrase, with controls and tripwires active. Right, because Emerge isn't some one-time project you do in a workshop and then forget about. The real power comes when you embed it into how you operate every single day. And the way you do that is with something called tripwires. A tripwire is basically a preset alarm system for your business. It's really simple logic. A specific indicator, like a currency swing, hits a threshold that you've already agreed on, and that automatically triggers a specific action that you've also already agreed on. There's no debate, no panicked meetings, no delay. It just happens. Here are a few actual examples from ThermoTrack. If the currency swings more than 15% against them, boom, the action is to immediately pause any fixed-price annual deals. Or if it starts taking more than 12 weeks to get a device certified, or worse, if someone asks for an unofficial payment, bam, shipments are suspended and it gets escalated to legal. The action is already decided.
And this whole system gets plugged right into a disciplined stage gate process. It's not a one-off. It becomes this continuous operational rhythm. You go from your initial idea to validating partners to running a pilot and then into a monthly review where you're not just checking your sales numbers, you're checking your tripwires. It's always on.
There's a line that just perfectly sums up the danger they avoided. It goes, "We'll sort compliance later" is how you end up as a business school case study, not as a successful company. And this framework forces you to get that your operational readiness is your strategy. They're one and the same. Which really just leaves us with one final, very pointed question to ask about our own plans. Is that big, grand expansion strategy you're working on, is it built on an attractive fantasy, or is it grounded in a sober, well-vetted, and actually executable reality? Using a framework like this is what gives you the tools to make damn sure it's the latter.